This is J. Krishnamurti's first public talk in Santa Monica, California, 1970.
I would like to talk about the whole problem of existence. Probably, you know as well as the speaker, what is actually taking place in the world. Utter chaos, disorder, violence, extreme forms of brutality, riots, ending up in war, whether it is in Vietnam or in the Middle East or elsewhere. And knowing how extraordinarily difficult, confused and contradictory our lives are, not only in ourselves, inside the skin as it were, but also outwardly. Utter destruction. All the values are changing from day to day. There is no respect, no authority, and nobody, at least those who are aware and thinking, no faith in anything whatsoever, neither in the church, nor in the establishment, nor in any philosophy. So one is left absolutely to oneself to find out what is one to do. What is one to do in this chaotic world? What is the right action, if there is such a thing as right action? I'm sure each one of us talks or asks, what is the right conduct? And this is a very serious question. And I hope those of you who are here are really serious, because this is not a gathering for philosophical or religious entertainment. We are not indulging in any theory, in any philosophy, or bringing from the East some exotic foreign ideas. What we are going to do together is to examine very closely, objectively, non-sentimentally or emotionally, facts as they are. And for that, to explore, there must be freedom. Freedom from prejudice. Freedom from any conditioning, from any philosophy, from any belief. Because we are going to explore together, very slowly, patiently, hesitantly, to find out. It's like good scientists looking through a precision machine microscope and seeing exactly the same thing. Because if you are a scientist in the laboratory, using the microscope, you must convince or show exactly what you see to another scientist. So that both of them see exactly what is. And that's what we're going to do. There is no your microscope or the speaker's microscope. There is only one microscope, a precision instrument through which we are going to observe. And in the observation of it, learn. Not learn according to your temperament, to your conditioning, or to your particular form of belief, or religious idiosyncrasy or propaganda, but merely observe what actually is. And thereby, through observation, learn. And in the learning is the doing. Learning is not separate from action. So, what we are going to do first is to understand what it means to communicate. We have not only to use words, which are inevitable, but also, much more important, is to go beyond the words, which means that you and the speaker together are going to take a journey of exploration, of investigation. So it is a matter where each one of us are in constant communion with each other. That is, sharing together, exploring together, observing together. For that word communication means that. Partaking, sharing together. And therefore, there is no teacher or the disciple. There is not the speaker to whom you listen, either agreeing or disagreeing, which would be absurd. But if we are communicating together, then there is no question of agreement or disagreement, because we are, both of us are looking. Both of us are examining, not from your point of view or from the speaker's point of view. That's why it's very important to find out how to observe, how to look with clear eyes, how to listen so that there is no distortion. So it is your responsibility as well as the speaker's responsibility to share together. We are going to work together. And so this is not an entertainment, neither intellectual nor emotional. And this must be, if we may point out very clearly from the beginning, this must be very clearly understood. We are not indulging in any form of sentimentality or emotionalism. Therefore, it's no longer a question of entertainment, but a matter of such gravity, of such seriousness, that both the listener and the speaker are together going to find out, together going to examine and find out what the truth, and from that, what action should come about. If this is clear, then we can proceed that you and the speaker, being free from our prejudices, from our beliefs, from our particular conditioned knowledge, free to examine, bearing in mind that we are using a precision instrument, the microscope. And you and the speaker must see the same thing. Otherwise it will not be possible to communicate together. And as this is a very serious matter, you must not only be free to examine, but free to apply, free to test it out in daily life. Not keep it merely as a theory or as a principle towards which you are working. So, bearing in mind that we are not bringing in Indian philosophy, any Indian belief, or any quoting any book, because all those such things are rather immature and infantile. Now let us look what is actually going on in the world. Violence of every kind, not only outwardly, but violence in our relationship with each other. There is division between people, nationalistic, religious division. The Catholic and the Protestant, the Hindu and the Muslim, and so on. Infinite divisions, each against the other, both politically, nationally, religiously, and individually. And there is great conflict, both inwardly, in our relationships, and also outwardly. Now, what is one to do? Knowing that every minute there is a change going on, not only technologically, but inwardly. Seeing this vast far, confusion, immense sorrow. What am I to do? What are you to do? Can you look to anybody to tell you what to do? To the priest, to the church, to the specialist, to the analyst? Because they have not brought about peace in the world. They have not brought about happiness, joy, freedom to live. So where are you to look? And if you assume the responsibility of your own authority as an individual, because you have no longer any faith outwardly, in outward authority. We are using the word authority advisedly in a particular sense of that word. Then, will you look for your own authority inwardly? You as an individual? The word individuality means indivisible, not separable, not fragmented. Individuality means a totality, the whole. And the word whole means healthy, holy, Holy. And no, and you are not an individual, because you are not sane. You are broken up, fragmented in yourself. You are in contradiction in yourself. Separated, contradictory. Therefore you are not an individual at all. So how can you ask out of this fragmentation, assume or ask that one fragment assume authority over the other fragments? Please do see this very clearly, because this is what we are examining very closely. Because we see education, science, organized religion, propaganda, politics have failed. They have not brought about peace in the world. Though technologically man has advanced incredibly, but man remains as he's been for thousands of years, fighting, greedy, envious, angry, violent, brutal, and burdened with great sorrow. That is the fact. That is not an assumption. So, to find out what to do in a world that is so confused, so violent, so utterly unhappy, we have to examine not only what living is, actually as it is, but also We have to understand what love is. And also what it means to die. And also we have to understand what man has, for thousands and millions years, has been trying to find out if there is a reality which transcends all thought. Until you understand this whole picture, all the complexity of it, just to say, what am I to do with regard to a particular fragment, has no meaning whatsoever. You have to understand the whole of existence, not just a part of it. However tiresome, however agonizing, however brutal that part is, you have to see the whole picture. The picture of what love is, what meditation is. If there is such a thing as God, what it means to live. We have to understand this whole phenomenon of existence as a whole. And then only you can ask the question, what am I to do? And if you see this whole picture, probably you will never ask that question. Then you will be living. And when you have seen that picture and living, then the living is the right action. So first, we are going to say what is living and what is not living. To observe. So we have to understand what that word means. The word to observe, to see, to hear, to learn. To see, to hear, and to learn. What does it mean to see? Because we are going to see the whole picture of life, of existence, not just one fragment. Because we are human beings, not Americans, not black people or brown people, communists, socialists, Hindus, Catholics, and so on. We are human beings. And we have this immense problem. You have not the problem of a Catholic. That's just mere a label. That's the result of 2,000 years of propaganda. And propaganda doesn't make for religion. It makes for hierarchical, religious, organized bureaucracy, which has nothing whatsoever to do with religion. So we're going to find out together what it means to look, to observe. You know, when we are together looking at something, It doesn't mean togetherness. It means that you and the speaker are going to look. What does that word mean, to look? It's quite a difficult thing to look. One has to have an art to look. You know, you have never looked probably at a tree. Because when you do look, all your botanical knowledge comes in and prevents you from observing actually as it is. Probably you have never looked at your wife or your husband or your boyfriend or girlfriend. You have never looked because you have an image about her or him, and that image is going to prevent you from looking. The image that you have built about her or him, the image that you have about yourself. And so these images are going to prevent you from looking. And therefore, when you look, there is distortion, there is contradiction. So, when you look, there must be a relationship between the observer and the thing observed. Please do listen to this, because it needs great care. You know, when you have something to care, you do observe very closely. Which means when you have great affection, then you are capable of observing. So together means to observe with care, with affection, so that we see the same thing together. So the first thing about seeing is the freedom from the image. The freedom from the image that you have about yourself. Please do it as it is being said. Because the speaker is merely a mirror. And therefore, what you see is yourself in the mirror. So the speaker is in no way important. What is important is what you see in that mirror. And to see very clearly, precisely, without any distortion. Every form of image must go. The image that you are an American or a Catholic or a Protestant, or that you are a rich man, poor man, your prejudice and all that stupid nonsense must go to observe. And they go the moment you see clearly what is there in front of you. Because what you see is much more important than what you should do from what you see. Because the moment you see very clearly, there is action from that clarity. It's only the mind that is chaotic, contradictory, confused, choosing, that says, what am I to do? But when the mind sees something very clearly, when the mind sees the danger of nationalism, of separatism, the division between peoples as religious and so on, the division. And that division is the greatest danger. Because in division there is insecurity. There's war. There's uncertainty. And when you see, not intellectually, not emotionally, but actually see the danger of division, there is a totally different kind of act. So it's very important to learn to see, to observe. And what is it we are observing? Not the outer phenomenon only, but the inward state of man. Because unless there is fundamental, radical revolution in the psyche, in the very being, in the very root of one's being, mere trimming, mere legislation on the periphery has very little meaning. So what we are concerned is whether man, as he is, can radically bring about transformation in himself. Not according to a particular theory, a particular philosophy, or according to a particular analyst, but seeing actually what he is, and that very perception of what he is will bring about the radical change. And to see what he is the highest importance, not what he thinks he is, not what he is told what he is. You know, there is a difference between when you are told that you are hungry and being actually hungry. The two states are entirely different. The one you know actually through your own direct perception, feeling that you are hungry. Then you act. But if you are told by somebody that you might be hungry, that's quite a different activity takes place. So similarly, to observe and see for oneself actually what one is. And that's what we are going to do. That is, self-knowledge. Knowing oneself. This has been stated, to know oneself is the highest wisdom. But very few of us have done it. In ancient Greece and India, everywhere they have talked about know yourself. We have not the patience, intensity, or the passion to find out what we are. We have the energy, but we have given that energy over to others to be told what we are. So we're going to find out what we are. Because the moment there is a radical change in what we are, we shall bring about peace in the world. We shall be extraordinarily free human beings, to live freely, not to do what we like, but to live happily, joyously. A man who has great joy in his heart, he has no hatred, no violence. He will not bring about the destruction of another. So that's what we're going to find out by observing ourselves. There must be freedom, which means no condemnation whatsoever of what you see in yourself. Because most of us condemn or explain away or justify. We never look without justification. We never look without condemnation. Therefore, the first thing to do, and probably is the last thing to do, is to observe without any form of condemnation. And it's going to be very difficult, because all our culture, tradition, is to compare, justify, condemn what we are. We say this is right, this is wrong, this is true, this is false, this is beautiful, which prevent actually observing what you are. Right? If this is clear, that is, never to condemn what you see in yourself. Because what you are is a living thing. Please listen to this. What you are is a living thing. And when you condemn, you are condemning it with a memory which is dead, which is the past. Therefore, there is a contradiction between the living and the past. And to understand the living, the past must go to, so that you look. And you're doing this now as we are talking. You're not going back home and think about it. Because the moment you go home and think about it, you're already finished. Whereas if you're doing it, actually, and also, this is not a group therapy. All this stupid nonsense. This is not a public confession, which is immature. What we are doing is to explore, like scientists, explore into ourselves, not depending on anybody. Because if you trust anybody, you're lost. Whether you trust your psychologist, your analyst, your priest, or your anybody. Or if you trust your own memory, your own experience. because that is the past. And if you are looking with the eyes of the past at the present, then you will never understand what the living thing is. So, we are examining, exploring together the living thing, which is the you, the life, whatever that is. That is, we are going to look at this phenomenon of violence. First, the violence in our souls, and then the violence outwardly. When we have understood the violence in our souls, then it may not be necessary to look at the violence outwardly. Because we have what we are, inwardly we project that outwardly. We are, by nature, through heredity, through a so-called evolution, brought about this violence in our souls. That's a fact. We are violent human beings. There are 1,000 explanations why we are violent. And we will not indulge in explanations, because what is explained is not that which is explained. Right? We can get lost in the explanations. Each specialist saying, this is the cause of this violence. And the more explanations we have, the more we think we understand, but the thing remains as it is. So please bear in mind all the time, the description is not the described. Or that which is explained is not that which is. So we will not indulge in the many explanations which are fairly simple, fairly obvious. Overcrowded cities, overpopulation, all the rest of it. We can brush all that aside. But the fact remains that we are violent people. From childhood we are brought up to be violent, competitive, ugly, beastly to one another. That's a fact. Now, we have never faced the fact. What we have said is, what shall we do about violence? Please do listen to this little bit with care, that is, with affection, with attention. We've always said, what shall we do about it? The moment you put that question, what shall we do about it, your answer will always be according to the past. Right? Because that's the only thing you know. Your whole existence is based on the past. Your life is the past. I do not know if you have looked at yourself ever properly. And you will see how extraordinarily you are living in the past. All thinking, into which we shall go presently, all thinking is the response of the past. The response of memory, knowledge, experience. So thinking is never new. Thinking is never free. And with this process of thinking, you look at life. And therefore you have, when you ask, what shall I do about violence? You have already escaped from the fact. So, if we can look at it, that is to learn what violence is, to observe what violence is. So, we are violent. That's an absolute fact. Now, how do you look at it? Do you condemn it? Do you justify it? If you don't, then how do you look at it? Please, do this as we are talking about. It's tremendously important. How do you look at this phenomenon which is in yourself as a violent human being? If you don't condemn, if you don't justify, how do you look at it? Do you look at it as an outsider looking within, or do you look at it without the outsider, without the censor? You follow what I mean? Am I making myself clear? You know, when you look, you can look at it as an observer, outsider. You, different from the thing which you look at. You who say, I am not violent, but I want to get rid of violence. When you look that way, you are assuming one fragment to be more important than the other fragments. Are you following all this? You see, when you look with one fragment, look at the other fragments, one fragment has assumed authority. And therefore, that fragment becomes contradictory, that causes contradiction, and therefore conflict. But if you can look without the fragment at all, without any particular fragment, then you look at the whole without the observer. Are you following all that? Yes, do it. Do it. Because then you will see an extraordinary thing takes place. Then you will have no conflict whatsoever. Because conflict is what we are, what we live with. When you go home, in the office, asleep, all the time, endlessly we are in conflict. Constant battle, contradiction. So until you understand the root of this contradiction, understand it yourself, not according to the speaker, not according to anybody. You can have no life of peace and happiness and joy. Therefore, it's essential that you understand this. What causes conflict. And therefore, what causes contradiction? What is the root of it? The root of it is this division between the observer and the thing observed. The observer that says, I must get rid of violence, or I am living a life of non-violence when he is violent, which is a pretension, which is a hypocrisy. So, to find out what causes this division is of the highest importance, because this division, this separation between the observer and the thing observed causes contradiction and therefore conflict. Now, can you, as you are sitting there, listening to a speaker who has no authority, who is not your teacher, because there is no guru, there is no follower, there are only human beings trying to find out a life without conflict, to live peacefully, to live with a great abundance of love. But if you follow anybody, you are destroying yourself and the other. Look, please don't clap. I'm not trying to entertain you. I'm not looking for your applause. What is important is that you and I understand and to live a different kind of life from this stupid life that one leads. And your applauding, your agreement or disagreement doesn't change that fact. So, as we said, it's very important to understand for oneself through your own observation, to see that this conflict must exist everlastingly as long as there is a division between the observer and the observed. And you have that. In you there is this division as the observer, as the I, as the self, as the me that is trying to be different from somebody else. Right? Is this clear? Clarity means that you see it for yourself, not the verbal clarity of hearing a set of words or ideas. That you yourself see very clearly, and therefore without choice, how this division between the observer and the observed creates mischief, confusion, sorrow. So when you are violent, can you look at that violence in yourself without the memory, the justification, the assertion that you must not be violent, but merely look? Which means that you must be free of the past. Right? To look means that you must have great energy. You must have intensity. You must have passion. Otherwise you can't look. Unless you have great passion, intensity, you can't look at a cloud, the beauty of a cloud, or those marvelous hills that you have here. In the same way, to look at oneself without the observer needs tremendous energy and passion. And this passion, this energy, this intensity is destroyed when you begin to condemn, justify, when you say, I must not, I must. Or when you say, I'm living a non-violent life, or pretend to live a non-violent life. You know, that's why all ideologies are the most destructive thing. You know, in India, they have talked about non-violence from time immemorial. They have said, we are practicing non-violence, and they are just as violent as anybody else. Only the ideal gives them a certain sense of hypocritical escape from the fact. And so, if you could put aside all ideologies, all principles, and just face the fact, then you are dealing with something actual, not mythical, not a theoretical thing. So that is the first thing, to observe without the observer. To look at a cloud, to look at your wife, at your children, at him or her, without the observer, without the image. The image may be a superficial image, or deeply hidden in the unconscious. So one has not only to observe the image that one has built, put together outwardly, but deeply inwardly, the images that one has. The image of the race, of the culture, the historical perspective of the image that one has about oneself. So one must observe not only at the conscious level, but also at the deep hidden level, at the deep recesses of one's own mind. I do not know if you ever observed the unconscious. Do you want to go into all this? Are you interested in all this? Do you know how difficult all this is? It's very easy to quote somebody. It's very easy to repeat what your analysts or the professors, the specialists have told you. That's all child's play. But if you don't read a book about any of these things, as the speaker has not done, then it becomes extraordinarily arduous. This is part of your meditation. To find out how to look at the unconscious. Not through dreams. Not through intuitions. Because intuition is one of the most difficult words, because your intuition may be your wish, your desire, your hidden hope. So to find out how to look at the image that you have created for yourself, about yourself outwardly, the symbol, and also to look at yourself deeply within yourself. How do you look? To look, one must be aware, not only of the outward things, but also of inward movement of life, inward movement of desires, motives, anxieties, fears, despairs, sorrows. Now, to be aware without choice, that is to be aware of the color that somebody is wearing without saying I like it or don't like it, go off into innumerable chattering about color. But just to observe. As you sit in a bus or in a car, to observe your own movement of your thought without condemning, without justifying, without choosing, saying this is good, this is bad, this I will keep, this I won't keep. But you just to look. Then you will say, when you so look, there is no observer. The observer is the censor. The observer is the American, the Catholic, the Protestant, the Hindu. Who is the past, is the result of propaganda. He is the past. And the past, when it looks, must inevitably separate and condemn or justify. So to look without the past at this whole phenomena of violence. You know, violence is not only hitting somebody or spitting another's face. What a disgraceful thing to do that. To spit in somebody's face who is your brother, who, you know, and that's what you're all doing. Not only verbally, but actually. You don't know what you're missing in life because you're not living. And that's why it's very important to find out whether conflict can ever end in yourself. And to end conflict, the past must come to an end. The past, which is you. You, when you say, I think, it's my opinion, it's my way of living, it's my belief, it's my doctrine, my God, my country. It's all that is the past. And when you live in the past, then your life must inevitably bring conflict. So to look at the past, which is deeply embedded in the unconscious, as the race, as the family, as knowledge, to look at it without any condemnation. Then you will see the separation between the conscious and the unconscious disappears. So one has to learn the art of listening and looking. Now perhaps, as we have talked for an hour and nearly 10 minutes, Perhaps you would like to ask questions about what... Wait a minute. Un momento. But what we have talked about. Now, to ask a question is one of the most difficult things. To ask the right question. But we must ask questions, not only of the speaker, which is not important, or his answer, but to ask yourself the question. And who is going to reply to that question? One fragment of you? Or the totality of yourself?
Is it not true? If you follow that, you're asking for martyrdom in our society.
Is it true, Savo?
Is it not true that if I live that way, that I'm asking for martyrdom in our society?
What? What? I haven't heard, sorry.
Is it not true that if I live that way, I'm asking for martyrdom?
Oh, if I live that way, the gentleman asks, am I not asking for martyrdom? Now look at that question. Sorry, sir, I'm not referring to you personally, but listen to that question. If I live that way, am I not asking for martyrdom? First, live it. And then you'll find out. You see, there we are again. This is just like wait, sir, I'm answering. This is just what we do. We have an idea, and we are trying to live according to that idea. If I do this, will this happen? But we never live it. So we're always thinking in terms of condition. Man who is hungry, who is really in sorrow, is he saying, if I do this, will I get that? He wants to be rid of sorrow. He wants to fill his tummy. He never talks about theories. So, sir, first, if I may suggest, rid yourself of the idea of if. Don't live somewhere in the future. The future is now. The future is what you project now. The now is the past. That's what you are. When you say, I'm living now, you're living in the past. Because the past is directing you, past is shaping you. The past has its memories, which is making you act this way or that way. So to live is to be free of time. And when you say if, you are introducing time. And time is the greatest sorrow.
Forgive my interruption. I'd like to ask how we can know each other, how we can reveal ourselves to each other.
How can we be ourselves to each other? How can we be ourselves to each other? Listen to that question. Be ourselves. What is yourself, may I ask? When you say ourselves to another, what is yourself? Your anger, your bitterness, your frustrations, your despairs, your violence, your hopes, your utter lack of love. Is that what you are? No, sir. Don't say, how can I be myself with another? You don't know yourself. You're all this. And the other is also all that. His misery, his problems, his moods, his frustrations, his ambitions. Each lives in a little isolation, exclusion. And it's only when these barriers, these resistances disappear, then you can live with another happily. So there is no big problem, sir. Sorry.
Why did you mention the unconscious? Why did you separate the conscious mind from the unconscious? You do not believe in separation.
I'll tell you. Why do you divide the unconscious from the conscious when you don't believe in separation? That's what you do. I don't. You have been taught within the last few decades that you have the unconscious. And you have volumes and volumes written about it. And the analysts are making fortunes out of it. As let me finish, sir, if you don't mind. As the confessions in the past have helped. Now, just a minute. You know, water remains water, whether you put in a gold jug or in an earthenware pot. It is water. In the same way, not to divide, but to see the whole of it. That is our problem. To see the whole of consciousness. Not a particular fragment of that consciousness, as the conscious or the unconscious. To see the whole of it is one of the most difficult things to do. But to see a fragment of it is fairly easy. To see something whole, which means to see it sanely, healthily, wholly. And to do that you must have no center from which you look. The center as the me, as the you, as the they, and we. So, sirs, we'll meet again perhaps on Wednesday. But this is not a discourse. This is not a talk or a lecture to which you listen casually and go away. You are listening to yourself. If you want to listen to yourself, if you have the ears to hear what it is saying, you are listening to yourself. Therefore, what it is saying, with that you cannot agree or disagree. It is there. Therefore we are sharing it together. We are communicating together. We are working together. Therefore in that there is great freedom, great affection, compassion, and it's all out of that comes understanding.